the problem faced by the freed slaves. So we are saying the freed slaves faced so many problems. We are saying they didn't know how to plan for farming in Africa. When Sierra Leone was created, the freed slaves faced the problem because they didn't know how to plan for farming in where? In Africa. So this was one of the problems faced by the freed slaves. So friends, before you continue, I emphasize one Kasoma Farouk of Uganda's idea. Believe that you can. Believe that you do what? At a time even when the waves are so large. Believe that you do what? You can. So we are saying they didn't know how to plan for farming in Africa. Moreover, to one time, they needed to depend on what? On farming. So this was one of the problems faced by the freed slaves in Sierra Leone. Then they were not used to the food in West Africa. At first, food was brought from England. So they were not used to food which they found in West Africa. So they used to get food from England. The question is, how were they going to survive when by this time they were not used to food in West Africa? That was a problem. Then the local Africans, Temune and Mende, never wanted to part away with their land. The Temune and the Mende did want to part away with their land. The question is, where were the freed slaves going to get land? When the Temune and the Mende never wanted to part away with their what? With their land. Another one, the white administrators in Sierra Leone segregated against the Negro settlers. So the white administrators in Sierra Leone segregated against the Negro settlers. And this was a problem faced by the freed slaves, because the white administrators in Sierra Leone segregated against the Negro settlers. Another one, they lacked shelter on arrival to Sierra Leone. We are saying today, they lacked shelter on arrival in Sierra Leone. They didn't have shelter where to sleep. The question is, how were they going to settle peacefully? So they lacked shelter at first. Another one, we are saying, lacked laborers on their plantations. They needed laborers to work on their plantations, but they lacked laborers, and this limited their work. Then during the Napoleonic Wars, the French destroyed Freetown because Britain was at war with France. When the French destroyed Freetown, it meant this time that the properties of the freed slaves were so much affected because the French destroyed Freetown. Then the white administrators in Sierra Leone segregated against the Negro settlers. It is said the Negro settlers were segregated against by the white settlers, and this limited their work, because this kind of discrimination meant by this time that they could not do their work easily. Then financial problems, since by this time they depended on the whites, so they had the financial problems in issues concerning about to finance. They were so much affected. Then he lacked capital to begin economic activities like a trade. Some wanted to begin economic activities like a trade, but they lacked what? Capital. The question is, how were they going to survive when they were lacking what? Capital. Another one, the unfavorable climate. It is said Too much rainfall destroyed their tents and shelters. As we have said, they did have shelter. Some of them had to live in tents, but the too much rainfall destroyed their what? Their tents, and this affected them. Then the failure of the Temune to sell their land permanently. It is said that Temune, who could sell land to the freed slaves, were not willing to sell their land permanently. And this was a what? A problem faced by the freed slaves in Sierra Leone. Then communication with the local people was a big problem. Another problem, communication with the local people was a problem because they were not used to the language of the local people. So we are saying the coming of the freed slaves in Sierra Leone, they faced some problems. Then lacked educational institutions where their children could learn from. They lacked education institutions where their children were going to attain knowledge. So this was also a problem. So friends, you need to understand the problem faced by the freed slaves in Sierra Leone. The problem faced by the freed slaves in Sierra